This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by OWC, Spectra 1964, Sampley, Carl Tatz Design, and iZotope. In fact, you're hearing my voice right now through iZotope RX and Ozone, all recorded safely onto an OWC SSD. So get ready to rock.
I don't buy gear anymore. We were speaking about Langston earlier. I send stuff to Langston all the time. We talk all the time. I send him things, and every time I send him, he'll text me or call me. Al, what'd you do? What'd you change? What's going on? Nothing. I didn't change anything. Haven't moved that microphone in a long time, But I just know it now.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Do you need to record direct stereo keyboards? Spectra 1964 now offers the Stereo BBDI-2 with custom wound high-Z transformers for big headroom, virtually flat response, and a 15 dB input pad. The Spectra 1964 BBDI passive direct box is also perfect for recording deep bass that will make your mixes sound huge. Plug that into a C610 complementer, and as founder Bill Cheney points out, it'll move your pant leg. Get your sound moving at Spectra1964.com. If you are rocking a Mac Mini M1 in your studio, then you should definitely check out the new OWC Mini Stack STX Thunderbolt 4 certified storage and hub expansion solution. It's the perfect size to seamlessly stack with the Mac Mini and add storage and connectivity over Thunderbolt or USB. Whether you have the new or old Mac Mini, nothing stacks up in your studio quite like OWC. Find the new Mini Stack STX and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars. Howdy, Rockstars. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Alan Evans, joining us again. He's previously been a guest on the podcast back for episode 183. Al is a multi-instrumentalist, engineer, producer, artist, studio and record label owner based in Western Massachusetts. Al has been making music on stage and in the studio for over 30 years, most notably with his band Soulive, as well as with artists like Oteil Burbridge, John Scofield, George Porter Jr., Karl Denson, Neville and Reggie Watts. These days, Alan has pulled back from touring to focus his energy and time at Ironwax Studios, his recording facility in Erving, Massachusetts, where he works with artists from around the U.S. and beyond. Ironwax is also the sound of Vintage League Music, the record label that he runs with his London-based partner, Robert Fleming. In the end, Alan's goal is to spread great music, love, and positivity throughout the world, which he hopes will inspire a new generation of creatives. That sounds a bit like Recording Studio Rockstars, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Al has been a guest on the show, like I said before. So if you want to hear his backstory with Soulive and the first band that I actually met him with, which was Moonboot Lover, cool band, check out RSR339, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. So Rockstars, please welcome back Al Evans to Recording Studio Rockstars. Al, are you ready to rock, dude?
I'm ready to rock part 2.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
Tell us about, what's been going on with you. What's the latest update at the studio and stuff? I mean, we kind of on the first podcast did more of an intro, but I think you've had some big changes, right?
Man, definitely had some big changes since we last spoke officially on the podcast, but actually since we last spoke just outside of the podcast. Well, one big change was in December of 2019. Specifically the day after Christmas, my wife and I came into the studio and overhauled the entire place.
Nice.
Yeah. So it started off as, I just wanted to clean it up, And so that morphed into, well, let's paint the walls. And she's like, well, you've been complaining about the floors, so let's do the floors as well. And as soon as she said that, I was like, do you understand what that even means? Like, I got to take she's like, yeah, you take everything out of the studio, it'll be fine, Yeah. So we got that going. But prior to that, once we made the decision to kind of renovate the studio or whatever you want to call it, I told her, I was like, you know what? I just want to be a worker bee. And what I would like you to do is design the place. I want you to design it. I wanted you to design a space that you would want to hang out in. Instead of,
cool.
What I'm saying, man, because a lot of times the studios become like the man caves.
Yep.
And which is fine, but I just wanted that the female touch to it. So she kind of went crazy. She was like on Pinterest, for weeks, just getting ideas together, and we were going to different shops and antique places. And so anyway, so day after Christmas, we came in here, started pulling everything out, painted the walls, did the flooring, and then just really started the design aspect of the studio. And actually, one thing that was a really cool exercise that she had me do, I had like many people do, I had a bunch of like rubber bins, Rubbermaid bins or whatever, storage bins, and full of cables and all kinds of adapters, microphones. Just, literally, man, I had stuff from when I was a teenager. And so as we were bringing things, so everything was outside of the studio in a room outside, and she would just bring one thing at a time, and I was sitting on the floor, and she would just dump it, and to go through it. So I would like go through things like, oh yeah, I don't need this. This doesn't work. This is busted. Blah blah blah, and that took a few days to do, but the end result was that everything in here serves a purpose. Everything in here works. I know where everything is. And it's just a very clutter-free environment. And that's a beautiful thing to have when you're trying to create music or art. I don't have to worry about things just kind of, at least for me, things are just, I feel I start to feel overwhelmed. Like you come in the studio and it's just like things are all over the place. You can't find things and you just can't get to work. So
yeah, no, that's key. That's the funny thing about having a studio is once you start a studio, I guess after you've been doing it for a minute, you begin to realize, oh, I thought building a studio is going to be all about fancy, like really flashy gear with lights on it. And then you're like, no, it's all about having the right connector for every single possibility. And then more importantly, like knowing where to find the thing so that you can actually use it. So, when you end up with just tons and tons of stuff, I also went through a studio redesign and I haven't finished putting everything back together. And it's really frustrating because I'm like, I know I've got one of these, but I don't know where it is. So, I guess I'll just order another one for now.
Right, exactly. And so the other thing that I can easily say we end up doing a lot is you hold on to things because you're like, oh, I'm going to need that someday, or I may need that someday, this random cable or this or that, so you just accumulate so much stuff. And, after, doing this for decades now, it's just like, well, I haven't, it got to a point where I had stuff in bins that I hadn't opened in 15 years. So clearly I wasn't losing any sleep. I wasn't going to lose sleep over it not being here any longer.
Not for 15 years anyway, another 15 years.
Exactly. So the other cool thing was, like I said, we had I had all these Rubbermaid bins, all these storage things around the studio. And I just wanted to get rid of all that stuff. So that's where the antique shops kind of come into play. We went out and luckily there are a lot of great antique shops in our area, but we found like wooden, like really cool wooden boxes. And,
nice.
And so, yeah, man, you know what I mean? So it's just a really nice feel in here. I just wanted to get rid of as much plastic as I could and just Yeah, just make it a nice warm place. So the funny thing is, a lot of people who come in here, especially people who are in prior to the renovation, they all say, "Wow, feels like a spa," or like a, it's like, yeah. But honestly, man, my one of my goals has always been, and I'm not there just yet. Hopefully someday I will, but I want to create a studio that doesn't look or feel like a traditional recording studio. I don't know. That's just my thing. I'm really into aesthetics and architecture and design. And so that's one day I'll get there. I haven't totally figured out how I'm going to do it yet, but
I think it's an evolution, and the
exactly.
fun part about what we do, I think, is since we all love making music and studios so much, we're just going to just do it always, hopefully, and so therefore you get a chance at evolving the studio over years and decades as you go. I also just did a big transition, and the big challenge for me was choosing to part with some of the gear that I felt like that was awesome and I loved, but I felt like, you know what, like either it hasn't been on in a few years, or it doesn't have to be part of my workflow, and I want to try a new workflow. And for me, that was my mixing console and my tape machine, which I know you're going to be, Al, you're going to hang up on this podcast interview right now when I say that, probably. But
yeah,
no, I parted with the MCI console, and but the new vibe in the control room, and like having a new desk and a new ergonomics and like a whole new clean look is got me super excited about recording. So that's cool. And when you talk about setting up your studio and trying to make it like a spa, that makes me think of comfortable. And one of the artists that I know you worked with, Brian BT Thomas, the BT. So what is it? BTALC Big Band.
Big Band. Yeah.
What's ALC for?
Oh, that's his partner, Alex Lee Clark.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, those guys are great. And he made a comment in a testimonial about you, like, Al made everyone feel super comfortable to ensure the cats could focus on the music. And I know that's a big thing for you from our last podcast interview too. And so, that's cool, man. Just like making the vibe of the place nice so people can just relax into making music and not have to sweat the process.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, a lot of that just comes from like my experience over the years, having gone to, different studios, and you're thinking about the clock, or you're thinking about, oh, I don't want to touch this thing over here because I don't know what it does, but it looks super expensive. And you're just, all this kind of stuff. And you start stressing out about different things when the focus should be just on having a really good time, being super relaxed, feeling like you're at home. I mean, that's the thing, man, a lot of bands or artists, the majority of their time is obviously not spent in a recording studio. They're either on stage or they're in their practice space, but they're used to a certain comfort level. And then all of a sudden you get the money together, you get the courage together, whatever it is, to go in the recording studio. And some people may only get into a recording studio once every 2-3 years. And for me, it's just about making people feel as comfortable as possible, man, because you're just going to get really good performances out of them. They're going to feel great about the entire experience, and that's just going to come through in the music. So
yeah, no, I dig that. And I think about sometimes even just the choice of like, do I set up the expensive microphone that everybody has to walk on eggshells around, or do I put up the SM7s so you could probably spill your beer on it and it'd be just fine. But maybe no beer spilling in the studio. But also I think of the as I recall your description on the last podcast we did of your studio, I pictured a little bit more of an I don't know why I think industrial space, like I think you described it as having columns in there or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a couple. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a large space, but it is housed within an old New England mill building.
Right, right.
So yeah.
And then, but looking at pictures of it now, I was like, whoa! It's like I see like a window with light coming in, and there's like nice wood flooring and stuff. So
exactly,
nicely done, man. Nice,
hey,
nice
man,
changeover.
like I said, yeah, that's all Kim, man. That's all Kim. Like I said, I was a worker bee. I just like, you need me to make something cool, I'll do it. Get the tools out. But the design was all her. So yeah, very happy.
And just rock stars again. Let's remind ourselves that I think sometimes we get a little bit too sentimental about the cables crossing the floor and the dust balls piling up behind the console. Those don't always make good design elements. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody else come in and put a fresh eye on what the place could look like.
Exactly.
So what are some of the things that really did make the cut for you when you did this big changeover and you're like, I need to simplify? What are the things that you thought, what, this is definitely going to be in the new setup?
Well, like I said, my space isn't that large. So, I've been in here long enough now that I know what works, like where things sound good and where they should be. So the layout really stayed the same. One thing that I did, this addition, I don't know if you saw a photo of it. There may be a photo, but where I have some guitar amps. And so I built like I guess it's a shelf for the guitar amps. So they're all like in a line, and they're like 2x10. It's a long 2x10 piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're separate. Though actually, there's two pieces of wood, but they're separated by concrete blocks. Like whatever you want to call those things. I can't remember now.
Yeah,
but
concrete
anyway,
block.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like paving stones, or like garden.
Right. Yeah,
pavers.
a little thicker than that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I do see the photo on the website. So it gives you like kind of a guitar amp shelf, right?
Exactly. So it's great, and it serves a couple purposes. Obviously, there's some storage underneath the amps for guitar pedals and all that kind of stuff. But the cool thing is, I always like having the guitar amps up off of the floor. And so the concrete, the cinder blocks, kind of help serve as they decouple. They're decouplers, So
nice.
yeah, and it sounds really cool, it's just functional, So
yeah, I'm looking at the pictures now, and I like the way you've taken a simple open space and you find a place for each instrument and place for organization and everything.
Yeah.
Because it does look really cool. And especially, like, where do you put the drums when you're not using them? Stuff like that. It looks like you've created shelving for it.
Yeah, there's a little loft up there, like a little drum loft up, above the little bar situation, so yeah.
With so many game-changing iZotope plugins to choose from, deciding which one to buy next could be a bit of a challenge. But did you know that now you can have all their plugins through iZotope's affordable subscription bundle, Music Production Suite Pro, for only $19.99 per month? Get your Rockstar extended 30-day free trial subscription now at iZotope.com/rockstars and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. Before your band hits the studio, it's smart to have all the songs and notes in one place. But setting up a shared cloud folder can be frustrating. There's always somebody in the band who can't seem to log in or wants to use a different platform. Not so with Samply. It's easy to add collaborators to a project so the whole band can upload new songs and make comments before the session. Just upload your voice memo or mix and start collaborating. Sign up for your free account with 2 projects now at samplyaudio.com or use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off the first 3 months. And I also dig the fact that you in a certain way, you sort of said a studio isn't an empty space where you put everything away and then you bring it out every time you need it. A studio is a space where when you want to play that keyboard or you want to play that guitar amp, you just plug into it and turn it on and go. Like, maybe it's already mic'd up, or maybe you just got to scoot a mic over to it.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
it's
man.
quick.
Everything in here is always mic'd up and ready to go. And obviously, I have a tool chest that has some other microphones. So if I have a kind of different situation that I need a different setup for, I'll just go over and grab a mic and a cable or whatever. But yeah, the organ, all the keys, drums, guitar amps, everything, bass, everything is always ready to go. And so there's two reasons for that. One, obviously, this space, I want to always make it comfortable and easy for me to get started. So when I can just like walk in, if I'm working on my own stuff, so I can just walk in, I can sit down at the drums and I can change a snare. It's very easy actually to change the whole kit out. It only takes like 5 minutes or whatever, 10
Nice.
minutes to switch over a kit and then just start recording. And then obviously it's great when I have a band come in. It's funny, Kim, manages the studio, so she fields a lot of the emails and such. But a lot of the communications usually start again with people who haven't been here before. Oh yeah, so we'll show up at 10 o'clock and we'll get, hopefully we'll be recording by like 4 or in the afternoon. We'll be getting sounds and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And knowing that we're going to be recording within an hour of them walking into the door. And that's 99% of the time, because
that's groovy.
Yeah, you just walk in and let's roll.
And like by 4, they will have recorded 2 new albums already.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I love it, man. So you're not only are you ready to rock, but you're always ready to rock. And in fact, if you're not ready to rock, you're only about 5 minutes away.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Nice.
I mean, and so the other thing, again, like having done this so long and being a musician, an artist, whatever, as well as it's all the same to me, being an engineer, being a musician, it's all the same. But what I've discovered over the years is, I have the drums mic'd up, and they pretty much they never change. The mics, the miking position, they're just all the same. Now, I remember one time I had a band come in here, and they were here for 2 or 3 days, and each day they had a different drummer. And so the first day they come in and record a tune or so, a couple of tunes, and the drummer was all comfortable and left. Second day, the next drummer comes in, and I say, "Hey, man, this is your whole situation. Change anything you want. Get comfortable." And he just looked. He's like, "No, I'm good." Sat down, and only thing that changed were his drumsticks.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference in the sound, it literally sounded like a different drum set. Obviously, a different drummer, but it was completely different. I didn't change levels. I didn't do anything. I just hit record the next day. And then that's when you like realize, and I mean, I've known this for a long time, but a lot of engineers get caught up in
like what we're doing with the
gear.
And
the gear, what we're doing. They're feeling like we need to make put our stamp on things. Or I'm not sure if I'm describing my feelings correctly, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's not even like, I don't even think we think about stamp, because nobody walks in and goes like, nobody even goes into the studio and goes like, I brought my stamp, Right,
exactly.
It's more like we just feel like we need to do something.
Exactly.
Justify our meager engineering existence.
Right. And it's like, man, I've just learned over time. It's like, hey, it's just let the music the music will dictate the sound more than anything.
Yeah.
Really, man, you know? So,
and it's also really surprising when it starts going in a direction that you think you might know in advance that, that's not going to work or something like that. But you learn to just shut up about it. And then later you discover you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. That turned into a thing I never would have predicted.
Oh yeah.
Because I just didn't get in the way of it.
Right. And, I also know myself at this point really well. And I've had too many situations where I thought I plugged something in correctly or in the right, and I didn't, or, oh, that microphone was backwards or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe I'm not the most detail oriented person in that respect. So knowing that, I just leave everything it works. Okay, cool. Leave it.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm good. I know it's going to work tomorrow. I'm awesome.
Yeah. I was doing something with, I've got one of these Isotope Spire Studios, and
Right.
I was using it to record a song with a while ago, and I would plug in different mics, and I would just have the cable on the floor running over to what I wanted to mic up with it, and just plug it into the 2 jacks. And on one of them, I thought I plugged in my overhead, but it was really the room across the room.
Yeah.
And I played the drum part, and like now that the way the drums turned out on that particular track, I'm like, oh, I love that sound.
That's awesome.
I had no idea what I was doing. Well, now what about the, one of the things that is in your photo, 2 things that I recognize from your photo. One is, I think you still look like you're rocking the PreSonus digital desk, right?
Oh, bro.
Yes or no?
Bro. Okay. So I told you about so there's a newer change.
Okay.
So that's not an updated photo. Okay. And I'm gonna break it down for you. So that was the PreSonus 32.4.2 AI, old school Firewire,
right. Oh, okay. Okay.
That's in that photo. It's not here any longer. I still have it, but okay. So this is where it starts. I'm in the studio one day, right? And I noticed that, and as you know, I use Studio One, whatever. It could be anything, but that's what I use. So I noticed Studio One was just kind of acting funny. It wasn't running as efficiently as it had been, in the past 6 months or whatever. So I was like, man, I was kind of started going down a little wormhole. So I just left the studio. And I decided one night to update my laptop, which was my studio computer. So I was running. I was
evil laugh.
Oh man! So I was running Mojave, and I'm like one of these cats. Man, if it works, I don't update it. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna update to Big Sur. No big deal. Whatever. So Kim and my daughter and I were watching some television one night, and I had the computer in the kitchen and just started running the update. About a half hour, 40 minutes in, I decided to go get a drink in the kitchen. So I look over as I'm walking in. I said, oh, that looks a little funny. What's that little message? So I can get a little closer, and there was an error message. And I can't remember what it said, but it was some kind of error. It's like, all right, maybe it lost the internet connection or something. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So I shut the computer down, and it just started the update again. Cool.
You made the error of thinking you could join and be a part of the future.
Yeah, exactly. So I go back, start watching some television again, kicking it, go back into the kitchen. Error message again. Third time, about 20 minutes in, there's another error message. So this time, fourth time I sat there and watched the timer, time remaining. And then literally about 19 minutes in, boop, error message comes up. I said, all right, well, that just failed. No big deal. So I shut the computer down, turned it back on. Well, the computer was stuck in between in the process of updating the operating system. So essentially my computer was dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I Googled the error message, and lo and behold, I find out that thousands of people are having the same issue. So anyway,
oh man,
I went down the wormhole, bro. So I said, okay. And Kim has been telling me you should get a computer dedicated for the studio, because as I used to, but the laptop is cool. It's portable, blah blah blah. Well, all right, I'm gonna get a Mac Mini. Everyone's talking about the M1.
Oh yeah, here we go. Let's check it out.
Yep. So I was like, all right, cool. This is going to be great. Well, I went on PreSonus's website, and my then console the old school Firewire joint was never going to be supported. M1 was never going to work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was like, well, do I get a Mac Pro, which isn't the M1, Mac Pro, but the new whatever, and spend a lot of money, or get the Mac Mini? So I end up getting the Mac Mini, but then I need a new console. So
you're like new computer, send kid to college. New computer, send kid to college.
Exactly, dude, and and really that's a real concern, actually. That's no joke, So I picked up a the brand new 64S, PreSonus Studio Live 64S.
Oh, sweet.
And so everything is cool now, but the studio was down for 3 weeks because, I had to deal with the computer stuff and then ordering and receiving the console, and then the wiring is a little different, from the old console. So yeah, it was a 3-week process. I'm super happy with it, with everything right now. I mean, that thing, it's so crazy, man. It's like things are so much easier now, but
that's awesome, man. Well, so I also have a 64S, and that was the console that I took down to Bonnaroo the past, 2 or 3 the last years we did it. And I have not reintegrated it into my studio yet, but I've got it ready to go, and I'm just like sort of waiting for the perfect click where I'm like, this is exactly what I need to use it for. So I love hearing your stories about how you're making such awesome sounding records. Rockstars, a reminder, we have an amazing playlist in the show notes. And thanks to you, Al, we have the correct playlist in the show notes. And so go check out the music and the records that Al's making at Ironwax, because I'll go so far as to say it sounds dope. It is awesome music. It sounds so badass. It sounds so old school. It sounds so funky that when you hear it, you're going to think that everything must be made in like high-end retro old school studios full of like the most collector's item stuff. And when you listen to Al tell you about it, you're going to realize that it's just being really smart about using stuff that's tools that are within your grasp. So very cool. Now, what about the Zulu tape emulator? I see those in the photo too. Tell us about those again.
Oh man, those are amazing. So yeah, Langston Massengale of Handsome Audio. They're amazing devices. So that's the world's first passive analog tape simulator.
Nice.
And yeah, man, I really wish I knew exactly what they did, but having grown up using recording and using tape or whatever, they definitely work. I mean, they're the truth. So
if you can't describe how they work, maybe you can describe what it feels like to start messing with the knobs and like what your experience is when you use them. And I think you said something about them being on inserts with your old console. Do you still do that? Is that part of going in?
Well, so as you know, the 64S doesn't have inserts. So that was like that. Yeah, exactly. So I really had to rethink how I was getting into it. And so I worked that out. So basically now I still have my patch pay going, but really there are some dedicated inputs on the console now, rather than just, being able to patch things around. It's totally fine. But in terms of what Zulu does, what I've experienced, you can basically get the sound of a Tascam. What is it? The 388? Is that
maybe? Yeah.
Or is whatever
I'll Google. We'll pretend we're like a high-end podcast, and I'll Google while you talk.
Yeah, exactly. But the mixer and reel to reel all in one type of thing. Yeah, I think that's 380. Yeah, exactly.
8-track. So, it says Studio 8 1/4-inch 8-track
right.
tape recorder with mixer.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get that sound which people are like loving these days based on how much those things are costing, like on the used market.
Yeah.
Insane. But hey, that's all good. Or kind of a 4-track kind of sound. You can get the Otari, the MX, was it the 50/50 kind of sound, the 8-track, vibe. And you can get like a Studer, like 24 track tape machine kind of thing, with different tape formulations and being able to bias the Zulu as a bias knob on it.
This show is sponsored by Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can go to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level. And you can start right now with my free introduction to mixing course, Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, or look for the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. The first time I heard a Carl Tatz Phantom Focus mix room featuring the PFM HD1000 master reference monitors, I was blown away. It was like listening to 3D holographic audio where I could reach out and touch the instruments with rock solid bass down to 20 hertz. It was awesome. And now I've got one of my very own at the Toy Box Studio in East Nashville. What's amazing is that the Phantom Focus system can be implemented in your existing control room too, or even your bedroom studio, giving you world-class sound. Go see how cool your studio could look and sound at phantomfocus.com. What does that even mean though? Like if we're like, you either go to science class and you learn all about bias, or you're just like, when you turn the knob, it sounds more like this.
Well, so I guess for most people, the way I just try to describe it to people, it's kind of like EQ, you can get things kind of sounding brighter or darker, and that's like at the most basic level of understanding. You know what I mean? Like, or best use practices, I guess.
All right.
Yeah. So, and it's a great device. I mean, the thing is, what I noticed when I first used it, it sounded great, but it was how it made me feel, like the music feel. And I really wish people, younger musicians, engineers, whatever, could have that experience of the first time when you hear your music played back on a 16-track machine. You're in the studio and you're sitting in the couch or sitting at the console there, and the first time you hit play, and it's a feeling. Like
you're gonna make me cry, man.
Yeah,
I just watched my machine go out the door.
Man,
but I know what you mean. It's so much
man.
fun. It's so much fun.
So that it just helps me, just create music. It really just helps me feel good about creating music.
It definitely is an awesome sound, and I hear it when I listen to your records now that I'm a little more familiar with it, just from watching the YouTube videos around it and stuff like that. And then also Rockstar's Langston Massengale was a guest on the podcast as well. I'm not remembering the episode number off the top of my head, but if you search for that in our podcast player, you should be able to find his too, where he talks about that stuff. But it's very cool, and it's got like the bias, and then you've got, I guess, tape formulations, and you can definitely get some crunch and distortion. And it's all that funky, cool stuff that comes from some of the old gear, like the Tascam or the tapes or the consoles, that makes everything just sound cool. It's like, I mean, an easy way for me to think about it is plug a guitar in, and if it's a boring, clean sound, you get kind of sort of excited about playing guitar, but turn up the gain a little bit and get some crunch, and all of a sudden it's just more fun and more exciting sounding.
Exactly. I mean, and to me, man, that's what that should be the experience in the studio. Like find things that just excite you, like make you excited about making music. I mean, I really, it's been a while since I've purchased any gear or plugins or anything like that, just because like I feel like I'm good at this point. Like if I can't make music with what I have at this point, then I really shouldn't be doing it.
I thought you were just busy purchasing antiques.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, right on. Okay, cool. So you've still got your central pieces. Now, another question that we should ask you about your studio is yours is set up like I would describe as a writing room, which is like your control room is right in the same space with the drums. You're in the same space with all the instruments. If you're engineering, you can spin around on your stool and you're looking at the band. Talk to us about some of the things that make that work well. Again, at the risk of repeating ourselves, like what works great about that? What are the challenges? What are the don't dare do this or you'll blow up your whole studio kind of stuff like that?
Right. Well, the advantages for me is that I'm just, again, I'm always thinking, I don't want to say I'm thinking first about myself, but it's very easy for me to come in here and create, like I can just move around easily. I can hit pause, I can hit record, new track, blah, blah, blah. And I can just keep things moving.
Yeah.
Now, when I have a band in here, the great thing is what I love about open concept studios, I guess that's what I'll call it, is I feel like, again, I'm still an artist. I'm still a musician. So I like being enveloped in the energy in the room. And it's just easy for me to communicate to people. If someone is laying down a really good take, they see I'm feeling it. If I'm feeling it, it just keeps the energy up. And I literally just had a band in here over the weekend, and they'd never worked in a recording studio like this, and they they were even saying like it's so funny, like the lead singer was recording vocals and everyone was kind of hanging out, and the vocalist was able to get immediate feedback. There was like a section that we added a lot of background vocals and he kind of forgot about it. So when they hit, he's like recording his lead vocal and he got so excited. Like I thought he was going to jump through the roof. And everyone was just like, oh my God, check him out. Like everyone, it was just like this, everyone was experiencing it at the same time, the excitement. And it just came out in the performance rather than, like, again, there's nothing wrong with, the traditional control room and live room, whatever. But I've been in situations where it's like, oh, the lead singer's out there on the other side of the glass and they feel like they're kind of in a fishbowl. And then on top of that, somebody's like checking, their social media. They're like everyone's faces are aglow. And it's like, okay, it makes it kind of hard for the person behind the glass. It's like, well, they don't really care too much about what I'm doing, obviously, so
yeah, man.
And again, I don't want to paint a negative picture, but that's just from my experience.
Well, it's true. And what I've noticed is that, I think of a lot of examples. So if I'm producing a band and I just need them to like step up the energy and deliver, as a producer, I'll start dancing around and, doing my stupid dance through the glass so that they can see me. It's like, I'm like pouring all this energy into the take they're doing, and somehow it all, it connects. And I think people feel it and they like feeling like we're all in this together. And then, another time when I have my friends in and we come in from doing a take, we'll just say like, hey, go knock out a vocal right now. And he'll just step through the door knowing we're all in there with the speakers turned up, probably drinking one too many beers and, and just having a blast. And then all of a sudden he delivers because, especially with that kind of thing, with my buddy Chris, he's, it's all about the energy. It's not, it's never about the pitch or the, the singerliness. It's just about whether or not the right energy is in the take.
Exactly.
And so I think that's great, man. That's cool. And now I have to redesign my whole studio again. So thanks.
Jeez. Thanks, Al. Yeah, man. So then on the technical side of things, where things can get challenging, obviously, like, if you don't have a dedicated control room, it can be difficult to know what's going on while the band is recording. Or
you mean what's going on in the speakers? In other words.
Exactly. So, to help mitigate that, obviously like I said before, my studio is set up so I've pretty much every guitar amp has a specific microphone on it that over the time I've discovered that, this sounds amazing. They pair very well, so I can pretty much guarantee myself that things are going to sound good. I know that, but what I have done, and I use headphones, obviously, when I have a band in here and I'm sitting at the console. But what I have done recently, I wish I could remember the drummer's name, but supposedly he is the guy who invented the isolation, the quote unquote drummer isolation headphones, so.
Clive Stubblefield.
No.
I just wanted to throw his name in there.
We'll go with that. Yeah. So anyway, so I purchased those, and basically all they are, they're like kind of like 3M isolation headphones.
Yeah,
but,
I think it's a St. Louis cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I used to have a pair, or maybe I still have them actually. And they're just like gun earmuffs that are turned into headphones.
Yeah, and he has like Sony 7506 drivers inside of them, So the cool thing is before I just used kind of whatever headphones I had in the studio, and they did a decent job, but I would still, at the end of the day, going home or when I got home, like, you have like a little ringing in the ears, but more so my body felt fatigued. I felt tired, because and so anyway, after getting these, which I'm actually wearing right now, man, that's gone away. So it really feels like I'm in a control room. Like I still can feel like when the kick drum hits or the bass is going, I feel that in my body, but this, I feel very separated. I can literally walk up to a guitar amp and just move a microphone and really hear like the movement. Like where you can't do that unless you're in a control room. But at that point, you're having an assistant or whatever move the mic, or if you're like really fancy, you have like the little motorized whatever Bluetooth things. Anyway, so that's great. So I would definitely, that's always a challenge in this kind of situation. But I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle on it at this point.
So just to reiterate, Rockstars, so the idea is that because they're gun earmuffs that have speaker, headphone drivers inside them, then in a loud situation, you can listen on headphones, but you can actually listen on a lower volume of the headphones. You don't have to have them cranked so much, right?
Exactly. You hear all the detail of things are going on. I can solo things on the console while people are recording here, and really just hear what's going on. And again, yes, the most important part of it is that you don't have to do it at, blaring levels to get over the noise floor of what's going on in the room. So
nice.
Yeah.
So you just finished an awesome mix and sent it off to the band, but the singer texts you with lyric changes, the drummer emails you wanting a different fill, and the bass player DMs you about a wrong note in the chorus. But which mix version were they talking about anyway? Don't you wish there was an easier way? Samply comes to the rescue as your ultimate mix assistant, streaming high-quality mixes so that your clients can easily listen and send notes from their mobile phone on the road or the computer back at the studio. All mix comments are time-stamped directly onto the correct mix mix version with no confusion, and everything is easy to find in one location. No more missed mix messages from the band. Phew! Sign up for your free account with 2 projects now at samplyaudio.com and use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off for the first 3 months when you're ready to upgrade. Look, I love using iZotope plugins for my music and podcast productions. In fact, you're hearing Ozone and RX on my voice in this podcast episode. And now you can get access to all the iZotope plugins through the subscription bundle. For only $19.99 per month, Music Production Suite Pro is designed for the serious recording, mixing, and mastering engineer, putting the finishing touches on music, film, and podcasts with fully pro versions of Ozone, RX, Neutron, Nectar, Neoverb, tonal balance control, visual mixer, and more, including free plugin updates. And just for you rock stars, get an extended 30-day free trial subscription at iZotope.com/rockstars and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. Coupon not valid for subscription. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session. My guest today is Al Evans, joining us from Ironwax Studios in Western Massachusetts. What's the town where you are, Al, and are you ready to jam?
I'm always ready to jam. That's for sure.
I think we spent the first half of the podcast talking about how you're ready to jam, didn't we?
Man, let's do it. The town the studio is in is Erving, Massachusetts.
Oh, that's right. Okay, groovy. Yeah. Which is out sort of past the colleges and stuff like that. What's Amherst?
Yeah, UMass. Exactly. So I'm just north of Amherst. Yeah.
Yep. And as I recall, Massachusetts is these beautiful kind of, rolling landscape, and you go by these old brick mills at different intersections of the streams and rivers and stuff. And so your studio is in one of those reclaimed mills.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to say it's reclaimed, yeah. I mean, I've been hanging out with the owner of the building quite a bit lately. He's a super cool guy, and he's had this building since 1979, I believe.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. So it's really amazing, man. Great, really cool history that I've been learning, and it's literally right on a river. Yeah, there's just a really creative energy here. So
that's great, man. Well, also I want to thank you for not beating me up too badly, because I think I said Clive Stubblefield instead of Clyde Stubblefield a minute ago. Nice.
Cool.
Well, so you and I got to work on a record together recently. Yeah. So
I haven't heard it yet, but hopefully I will soon.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you a
holding out on me, man.
Little sneak peek. I just saw the album cover, and it looks freaking amazing. And the band is called Hide Your Mamas, and it is Zach Moscow plays keyboard and has written a bunch of great songs. It's a trio. So we reached out to you, Al, and asked if you'd play some percussion on it, which you generously did. And it was very fun, and it turned out awesome. And I wondered if you'd maybe tell us a little bit of the story of that. Just like, I mean, not the boring part about like, Lidge, did you send me the tracks yet? Where are the tracks? Here's the link. But like, how do you set up? Like, what's your method for somebody sending you something? You're able to add some stuff and send it back. What makes it quick and easy for you, and how do you get a cool sound?
Well, a well-prepared, good sounding track always helps at first, So
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was killing, dude. You know that it was great, man. So yeah, I dumped it in, and I don't think there were any like tempo things that we had to deal with or anything like that. It was just like I got the files and just dropped them in, and for percussion, man, I found this one microphone that has literally become my favorite percussion microphone. I use it all the time, and it's an old realistic, like a Radio Shack Omni mic, like a handheld Omni mic. And man, on its own, it sounds well. I guess because you got the files, the tracks from me. It sounds cool, but when you put it in the track, and hey, rock stars, Lidge may have done like a ton of like isotope stuff to it and EQ, and I have no idea. So, well,
I probably was like, "Ooh, this sounds really good" through all my reverbs.
Exactly. But the cool thing, what it does though, it has like this really cool it just brings out a really great mid-range vibe. So what I've noticed over the years in cutting like tambourines or shakers or whatever, inclination was always to grab like the nice mic, like my U77 or like a U87 or something like that. And what I started noticing was I'd push it, I'd get the track in and push the percussion up, and it's like, well, where is it? Well, let me turn it up a little bit more. I turn it up, and all of a sudden it's like, it's too much. It's too loud, or too bright. I guess that was the thing. And then, okay, well, let's back it up. And you back it up like maybe a dB and a half. Then it's gone. You can't even hear it. And so that's just not working for me. So this microphone I just had laying around. I said, let me just try this. And man, it's like literally perfect. It sounds like a tambourine. It sounds like a cowbell. It sounds whatever.
The tracks that you sent sounded great, and they were really easy to sit into the mix.
Oh, cool. Well, awesome. Okay, that's great to hear, man. So it's not just me. I'm not just tripping here.
No, they were great, and I agree with you. So here's an example of something that does happen.
Yeah.
Hey, it's going to happen, Captain. Something that happens often in the studio because it's convenient, right? So I finish doing a take and there's, maybe large diaphragm condensers for overheads over the drums. And then the drummers are, let me lay in a tambourine track real quick. And then you're like, as an engineer, you might just be like, oh, well, it's easy. I'll just duplicate the overheads and go ahead and lay it in. And while that can work, it tends to have that challenge that you talked about where it's like, it tends to sound too hi-fi and too bright for a lot of productions where you just want it to be more of a character, and have that mid-range crunch.
Right, exactly. I mean, if I was making a tambourine album, I probably wouldn't use that microphone or, or just that mic. But I don't think I've made a tambourine album yet. So
you gotta call Jack Ashford and have him come and do a solo record.
Exactly.
From Motown.
From Motown. Exactly. So, and I guess to my ear, like, tambourine doesn't like, we'll just use tambourine as an example. Like it doesn't really sound like a hi-fi thing on its own to me. Like in the room, it just, So I feel like this mic that I've discovered that sounds great on percussion, it makes you push it in the mix, push it up in the mix, and it just sounds like percussion.
Is it a dynamic mic?
It is. It is. Yeah.
So maybe that's a good takeaway, rock stars, is like, I like to bust out my Coles 4038 for percussion too, for a similar reason. It takes all that kind of high-end spike off of the tambourines and stuff. But try out some dynamic mics. I mean, did you ever try just a 57 for percussion and find that got you part of the way there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure in the past I have. The thing I like about since it's a dynamic omni, it just the cool thing is I'll just set it up in the room and get a nice level. I'll say, hey, just stand here, and then it pretty much at whatever level it is, then I'll just have people kind of move around the room, so, or myself, so if I want, to get more of a room sound or sound further away, or if you're like kind of doubling or tripling things or whatever, it just kind of, it gives, helps percussion have a little more depth,
Yeah.
So.
I have an Electro Voice EV635 is another Omni dynamic.
Right.
So that's one that I've got. So I'll probably try that out. In fact, I probably did try it out after last time we did an interview. All right, groovy. Well, let's keep jumping forward. And Rockstars, of course, we'll be excited to share the Hide Your Mama's record with you. which very likely will be out with the release of this episode. So very exciting stuff. I'm going to give you a hint. The album cover that Zach just sent over to me looks like a how do you say it? Piet Mondrian painting.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it looks incredible. Looks really, really awesome.
Wow.
So exciting stuff. Well, so now some of the artists you've worked with, a bunch of great stuff in the playlist. So I thought I'd just hit you up for some stories and about, that stuff. The Iguana, that one with BTALC Big Band, that stuff sounds amazing. And I wondered if you wanted to talk about how you recorded and mixed something like that.
Ooh, okay, so that was a COVID special. And that or COVID special or a pandemic special.
Right.
And that it was all tracked separately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh yeah, bro.
Holy shit.
So what we did, we recorded, actually I think I'm playing drums on that one actually. So we recorded drums and organ first. So Darby, my friend Darby, who lives here, it was drums and organ first. And then after that, who played bass on that? Nate Edgar from the Nth Power. He played bass on that track. So I sent out to him. He laid bass down. Kraz, my partner in Soulive, he played guitar on that tune. He was next. And literally, so this is how I would do it. Drums, organ, send it to Nate. He'd record the bass. I'd mix that in. Guitar came in. I started.
So wait, you started with drums and organ together?
Organ. Yeah, exactly.
So that is the thing I wanted to ask you is like when you're trying to build something like that, do you have to have a couple of people playing together to start? I mean, is that really the secret to getting the groove, to feel great, but also be spot on?
No, I mean, not necessarily, because I've done it where it's just been me first, like just drums or just bass or guitar or whatever, and I'll start.
What if it's just me first?
man, yeah, you got it, man.
I'm just messing with you, but
man.
I mean, that is a challenge. Sometimes I try and play something, and it's just too hard to play one thing first, but. Keep going. It's a great sounding record.
Oh, thanks, man. So as each part was coming in, I was mixing it as each part was coming in. So it was like tenor 1, tenor 2, alto, whatever, whoever was up next, up to bat next, they just record. And the crazy thing is like, everyone was recording in the bedrooms, living rooms, basements. I have no idea, with whatever mic they had, and
you would never know it, man.
Well, so thank you, man. I mean, so with that said, keeping it simple is super important. So and this is how I approach big band records. It's kind of an old school way of doing it, but I have my saxophones and trumpets panned to the left. We'll say we'll give it a number between 1 and 100 in terms of panning. 50, left 50. Trumpets and trombones are on the right, and the reason I listen to a lot of big band records, and the ones that I like the most, I did not invent this, and it's not the Al Schmidt thing. It's a little different, but something I really dig. And what I noticed is, and why I was like, well, why did they do this? And I was like, oh, it's like a frequency range thing. Like, so the trumpets and the saxophones, if you're going from alto all the way down to bari, they cover that's a pretty large range,
Mm-hmm.
And then if you then go to your right side and you do the same thing with your trumpets and trombones, they basically, if you go all the way down the, bari trombone or whatever, like bass trombone, I should say, all the way up to trumpet, it's like that same kind of range. So it's like a nice balance, from left to right. And then it just blends into like this nice section. So what I was doing though, each person would send their file, their track in, and I just group everything I do. I treat it like a section. If there's any EQ at all, which pretty much I didn't do. If anything, it was just like a high pass filter to get any kind of rumble out of the room.
Right.
And I just treated it as a section. I didn't like start, oh, this trumpet sounds funny, whatever. Like, so I'm going to EQ it and then get it to sound all kind of pretty or whatever. I just did pretty much no EQ to those horns at all, except for a high pass filter.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got the last part, percussion or whatever it was, the tune was mixed.
Wow. And then what about things like compression? How useful do you find stuff like that? Or even the Zulu tape emulator? Did you use that sort of as a post-production process as part of your mixing?
Actually, not on that record. Sometimes I do use Zulu on my 2-bus, via pipeline in Studio One, most people just understand it as a hardware insert, That's, occasionally that's a case by case or song by song, project kind of decision. But in terms of compression, I mean, man, kind of going back to my doing things in a very simple fashion. I have a mix template, right?
Yeah.
And I have like different buses, like drums bus, bass, guitars, keys, organ, percussion, horns, lead vocals, background vocals. And so anyway, each bus is kind of has like a little vibe to it, like a compressor on it. And every compressor I have in my mix template is calibrated for a dB of gain reduction.
Interesting.
And I never ever touch them. I don't touch.
So they're just you describe them as just kind of licking the subgroup with a little bit of compression.
Exactly. So the thing is, so then you mix into them. So depending on how hard you push into them, then they react, accordingly. So, but with like horns, I mean, I tend not to compress too hard, obviously, but even if I didn't have that template set up or whatever, because there's so much going on with horns. Like you have key clicking sounds from trumpets and saxophones and the breath. There's just a lot of extraneous noise, I guess you would say, which is really cool about those instruments, but generally you don't need to enhance those, like with a lot of compression and,
Yeah.
So I generally just kind of stay away from heavy compression most times with everything, honestly, but especially with horns.
Yeah. Well, I dig that. And when something is performed really well with the right kind of expression, it sort of gives you what you might have been wishing for when you started reaching for compression on a part that wasn't performed quite as exciting, Exactly,
man. And so the thing is, this is where, I'd like to take some of the credit for that record or working with those guys, but to be honest, man, those dudes are like super, super professionals, So, I mean, that's just a testament to them. Like everybody who hears that, they say, "Oh man, that sounds great. It sounds like they recorded all in a room or whatever." Everyone's blown away.
I thought for sure this was the one where you were like, "Well, this time I didn't use any of my usual tricks, and I set up a stereo mic in the middle of the space, and it just came out that way."
Nah, man. Look, bro, I made that that was made just like everybody else was making, music back then, like last year or whatever it was. Like it's like everyone was locked up in their homes and in their little rooms and
email.
Yeah. Just, just dropping stuff via Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever. And I was, no difference, But
now, would you find that it was most useful to just sort of bounce an MP3 and send it to somebody and then they just load it in, add their part and then send back both clips? Or were you guys sort of sharing sessions? What was What was the dummy simple way to keep all that stuff synchronized?
Oh man, so the dummy, I definitely do it the dummy way. I tend to stay away from MP3s, and I don't know if that's I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of old school. I'm just a little afraid of MP3s or whatever. But so anyway, whatever. I just send a WAV file, and just with the it's just a 2-track. I do not like sending sessions around, and I really dislike getting sessions from people. Don't send. You want me to record on something? Send me a 2-track. Yeah. If you want me to mix something, send me just the files. I just don't want to deal with sessions because there's so much that can go wrong. I just recently mixed this album, and the producer sent I got the sessions. I asked specifically for files, but I got the sessions, a Pro Tools session, and I have Pro Tools, so I'm able to open it. But the thing is, when I opened it, there were so many tracks. I mean, it was insane. It was how many tracks there were, but some were like muted, and but nothing was like hidden. So I basically I didn't know what was supposed to be in the mix.
Yeah, and if you accidentally hit on mute on something, oh man.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So I didn't want to like waste my time, like, spending hours or whatever. I didn't want to spend 10 minutes on it to find out, oh, where is such and such? Or, oh man, that shouldn't be there. It's like, well, hey, if you're the producer, like make some decisions, so that's why I like just send me the files, start at 0, everything's consolidated, and then I'm rolling,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to do it. And then you just drag them into the session and drop them in at the start and go.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, so that's what I did with these cats. I just I printed the updated mix, and I always made sure that that it was the updated mix. I would just delete the prior mix from Google Drive and just make sure it was, something that they would be able to use, easily use. So,
yeah. All right. Well, there was another record you did, Vintage League Music Family Album Volume 1. And my note on that was that the horns sounded really awesome. So I wondered if there was something different about how you did horns in that situation from what you just described with BT ALC Big Band. And Rockstars, again, the record we just talked about, The Iguana by BT ALC Big Band. So check that out in the playlist.
So actually with the Family Album Volume 1, the horns were recorded exactly same fashion.
There you go. Awesome. So once again, it's the players and the parts.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm really lucky. So for most of the majority of Vintage League music stuff that has horns, it's arranged by either Alex Lee Clark or Brian B.T. Thomas. And basically those dudes, I'll just send them something. Hey man, this needs horns. And one of them will choose, say, oh, I got it. Or whatever, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just send the stuff around everyone. They upload charts, PDFs, and it's always on point. I mean, yeah.
That's a lot of fun to work with people when it turns out that way.
Exactly.
OWC now brings you the Mini Stack STX, the world's first Thunderbolt Force certified storage and hub expander, perfectly sized to seamlessly stack with the Mac Mini and the ideal storage and connectivity companion for Thunderbolt or USB equipped computers and devices. With a universal SATA HDD SSD bay and NVMe M.2 PCIe SSD slot, you can expand your Mini's storage capacity to gigantic proportions. speakers. 3 Thunderbolt USB-C ports enable you to connect millions of Thunderbolt, USB, and future USB 4 drives, displays, AV mixers, cameras, and tablets, as well as desktop accessories like a keyboard, card reader, or a mouse. Now, the possibilities of how you can use your Mac Mini are limited only to your imagination. Find the new Mini Stack STX and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars. The STX 100D from the Spectra 1964 Custom Shop is the big brother to the now famous STX 100, a fully discrete mic pre with dual transformer isolated Spectra 101 amplifiers. The STX 100D is exactly the same original circuit found in Stax, Ardent, AdVision, A&M, and Record Plant recording consoles. The sonic performance is identical. Best of all, it will plug into a single space of your standard 500 lunchbox. And if you want to add the sound of the famous Spectra C610 complementer, then check out the new STX 600 modules combining the STX 100 mic pre and C610 in a single 500 module. Now you can get that same incredible sound in your studio that worked for famous producers like Tom Dowd with the STX mic pre's, BBDI, and complementers. Go to Spectra1964.com or call 801-797-0642. Another record, Bring It Down, Johnny Trauma, Tim Gearin.
Oh, yeah.
Super heavy blues groove. And that one does have like a really like a shredding, ripping sax in it. And I wondered if, again, Horn's question, is there anything different to the way that we might approach a sax part like that versus something else? Or is it, does it just come down to the performance again?
Man, so with that tune, Johnny had in mind, he was like, he wanted like a Bobby Keys kind of vibe. Rolling Stones kind of thing. And I believe that was Mike Tucker who played saxophone on that, who just nailed it,
Good memory too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think he laid down that saxophone after everything else was cut. And Johnny just gave him the direction. He was just like, I'm just looking for this kind of vibe. And yeah, he just nailed it, man. I mean, I guess the only thing that I did a little differently on that, I wanted a little bit of that, the grime, I wanted real dirty sounding, you know? And so that was the one, again, Mike recorded it on his own. And when I got the track, it sounded good, but it was a very clean, safe, recording, which I appreciate. I'm not complaining about that. But definitely if I was recording it in the studio, I would have just gone for that. I would have grabbed that sound right on the, on the floor. You know what I mean?
You would have tried to get it on the way in. Well, plus with those Zulu boxes, you're sort of running something in. You can get a little more action out of it when you're recording it, right?
Exactly, right. And I love what that does also is that, if someone is using headphones then or whatever, they're hearing what it's going to, they're hearing the sound.
Yeah.
So they're playing to the sound. It's going to hopefully help inspire them. So it makes it a little, it's a little difficult when you're just like playing to a clean, dry sound and then you're trying to imagine, what it's going to be. But again, Mike, he killed it. He's a great player. So, it came out great.
How much does that affect you if you're playing drums? Like how much does the sound need to come through the headphones to play the drums the right way? And then I got lots of other drums questions.
It definitely, I have to hear it, the way it's going to sound.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes it more fun, when you put on the headphones and you're just like, whoa, this, it sounds like a record, it sounds whatever. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing with drums, it really helped. It more importantly, it definitely helps to have that sound in your cans because you'll discover that a lot of, and this, I'm sure, I'm sure, Lidge, that a lot of the great studio drummers that you've worked with are
Mhm.
usually pretty light hitters.
Yeah. I know that,
And
and I know that recording myself,
mhm,
anything that I do and play and record myself sounds better if I hit it light and really jack up the mic pre's and really kind of excite the sound more.
exactly, man. Yeah, yeah. That's key. Of course, like when I get work with drummers who aren't, really hip to that yet. And you just kind of, you just kind of deal with it. It's cool. But it always sounds better when you play lighter. You can get like a bigger sound, because you're letting you're not compressing all the air in the room or compressing the air on its way to the microphones.
Mhm.
And you just kind of, yeah, you have more headroom for getting the gear to sound like get the sound, and then you put it in your headphones and just like, oh, this is just it's just the best, you
Yeah.
know.
I love that. So couple of questions. Craig Alvin, when he was on the show the first time, he talked about going out and sort of dialing in the drum sound before a drummer got there to play on a session.
Hmm.
Do you find that that helps you? I mean, do you like sort of get it? I mean, you also said you don't change the setup that much, so maybe it's not necessary. But do you find that if you get it sounding cool to yourself in the headphones and then you just hand it over to a drummer, that they have a tendency to find that like exciting and awesome? Or do they need to change it up a bunch?
Generally, yeah, they're usually pretty psyched with what I've got going on. I mean, it's it's gotten to a point where it's like I'm like, you can change the drums. It's kind of funny now. I'm like looking around, I'm looking up at the drum loft right now, and most of those drums haven't been used in a while. It's like, I mean, hey, whatever. People are psyched with it, so that it's all good. But yeah, I mean, I think it helps. Again, I've been doing this a pretty, long time at this point,
Yeah.
so I think I have a pretty good handle on what sounds good and what it works well in the studio. And like I said, yeah, people are usually really psyched, and they let me know. I mean, the cool thing is, again, like I said back to earlier, when so many people's experience are like, oh, they spent half a day in the studio listening to the snare drum, like, doof, doof. Okay, Tom, it's like, holy crap, man. So, I mean, I think maybe they're just more psyched with they didn't have to deal with that,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so, and it's just always, man, it's so exciting when like the drummer or the bass player or whatever, it sounds good in their headphones, but it's even more exciting when, after I'll tell them like, hey, just come on in, sit down, get comfortable, and record, the intro and first verse, maybe pre-chorus, chorus, whatever, whatever you guys want to do, and they'll do that, and then they come over and I just hit play, and they're just like, oh, what? I mean, it literally sounds like a record.
That's awesome, man. Except their first question is, "What do you mean, come on in? You're just like sitting right there in front of me."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt.
So I guess you do have to remind us to be a little bit careful about, don't leave your tracks and record when you crank up the speakers for playback if you want to keep your speakers for very long, right?
Yes, yes, indeed. Oh yeah, yeah. That's a great thing I love about the this new console. I just have like a button on there that I program for. It's just like a mute all. So I can just hit it really quick. But that doesn't always, that you have to remember to hit the button. So yeah.
There's no other like 100% dummy proof trick on that though, is there? I mean,
Nah.
like if you make the mistake, so Rockstar's just a reminder, if you have your speakers turned on and the mic is all, armed, most of us hopefully know this. You crank your speakers up, you're going to have feedback right there in your studio and you're going to lose your speakers, which is not fun to do. And I've done it before.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, yeah.
But you can also, surprisingly, you can get away with a fair amount of volume without feedback, just depending on what kind of mics are there and, what you're using.
Right, right. And here most of the mics being used are dynamic mics. Which is and close, and that's actually the other exciting thing that I get to being kind of like a teacher when I'm in the studio. Like people come in and they look around, again, people who haven't been here before, and they're like, oh, well, we're so, the guitar amps are right there. I mean, literally the guitar amps are next to the drums. Everything is in here. And so we're not going to, put things out in other rooms, or no, there is no other room. So this is what we have to deal with. But when I hit solo on my Supro here, and they're like, where are the drums? And you can barely hear the drums in the microphone. Like, wow, that's so cool. It's like, yeah, man, if you pick the right microphone for the job, and know where to place it. Yeah. The little bit of bleed is, I mean, sometimes there is basically no bleed, or if there is a little bit, it's like super musical.
Yeah. A little bit is a good thing.
Yeah, a little bit is a good thing.
Because especially if you're, so here's a question for you. If you're setting up and the mics are all in the same room, and I've done this here and there at different times, and I'm always struck by it. It's always like, wow, that sounds really cool. I should do that more often. And then I probably don't,
Mm-hmm.
But the, having the amp in the same room with the drums, obviously you're not, depending on the levels, you could mute the guitar amp and go, wow, there's not that much bleed into the drums. Or you have some and you might discover, oh, we were totally able to punch in a part and it didn't really matter, or it sounded cool, right, or the guitar just sounded chorused for a moment. And that was what a cool effect. But what about panning though? Like when you place the instruments in the room, if I picture it, I think your drums are sort of towards one corner coming out, mm-hmm, and then the guitar amps are maybe from drummer position off to the right. Is that right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So then it's like if you're panning the guitar to one side of the mix anyway, it kind of adds up a little bit just because of the positioning in the room.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's funny you say that, because most of the time when I'm mixing, say, the drums from the audience perspective. This is something I like to do.
Yeah.
People do it. I've done both ways, whatever. But lately, for a long time, I've been doing audience perspective. So when I have a band in here tracking, just to help me be able to kind of decipher what's going on, really being able to hear on the console, I have all my the guitar amps panned to the left. So and then keyboards to the right, and I've just realized that that's actually how things are panned physically in the room.
Nice.
It's just, I don't know. And most times, like, those tracking mixes kind of end up being, because it just sounds good. You're like, oh, this sounds great. That's usually the panning I choose for the final mixes. Obviously, like, things change, guitar solo, I'll put maybe up the middle, or every tune is different. So who knows? But generally, that's it. That's how things are panned, and so I guess, that's just by accident. That's the way. I never thought about that. I literally it wasn't a conscious decision.
That's why you come to Recording Studio Rockstars to throw you a curveball. So, what about are they, the guitars and the keyboards? Do they tend to be at the same distance forward as the kick drum?
No. So that I haven't gone. No, man. To be honest, like no. I understand that concept, for sure. I've always wanted to try it, but no. To be honest, man, I just kind of set things up in here to the way it just felt comfortable to me, and I was just dealing with a small space.
Yeah.
Just maximizing that space.
Yeah.
So no. Now, I'm able to, like, with this band I just had in, the keyboardist is the lead singer, and he recorded, actually using this microphone, the RE20 I have here. He laid down a scratch vocal. And the cool thing is that when you would mute the vocal on playback, you couldn't hear him at all in the room. So that was great. The thing is it was, if I had to use that vocal, I could, but the drum sound definitely changed with it in, because you're getting like certain, the drum bleed is definitely coming into the microphone, and it's also kind of bouncing. You're getting the little reflections off the wall into it, and it just the whole EQ,
Yep.
whole sonics of the drum. Yeah,
the old scratch vocal mic can't turn it off trick.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was really happy that we just he recut the vocals. So that's usually the only time that it's a problem. I actually recently I had a band in here. We did a record. I don't know if I sent you any of it, but it was saxophone and trombone, and everything was cut live in the room or whatever. And I had him behind like some gobos, and I mean, you could hear a little bit of the drums and everything, but again, it was it was just the sound. They wanted to record live, and it sounds great. The one thing that you have to always, I guess, why it becomes an issue is the delay, the time, depending on. So the horns were actually looking at the drums. They were on the other side of the room.
Mm-hmm.
But I used an RE20 and I can't remember the other mic for the trombone. A Telefunken M80, the kick drum kind of mic.
Yeah.
So it's amazing for a trombone actually. And it sounded great. I didn't actually get very much of that delay and it's only, it's milliseconds you're talking about, but it can become a problem sometimes. So
yeah, well, especially for somebody like you, I think you're pretty attentive to to the spaces between the notes. You've got a heightened sense of groove, and you're going to pick up on it if it's messing with it at all.
Yeah, that stuff literally drives me crazy. Yeah, it really does. So
let's talk about some other things for recording drums. You've talked about your single mic thing. In fact, you hipped me to it before I started doing the Hide Your Mama's record. Yeah. And I've started adding a single mic on a bunch of recordings, and I love it. And it really, I haven't been doing anything yet quite as bold as like, I've only got one mic and that's the whole drum sound. Mm-hmm. But I've added it in. It adds a lot of excitement. Just talk a little bit about that. Some of the stuff you discovered, maybe if you got a favorite mic for that, or if you just want to explain where does that mic go and how people can get started experimenting.
Yeah. I mean, so it all started with, I was just wanted to challenge myself with just creating a different sound, and the drums are just, man, luckily I've gotten really good at it over the years, but they are one of the hardest instruments to record, and generally because more microphones, more problems.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just want to approach the drums like I would a guitar amp or a vocal or just whatever, something that you could or generally put one microphone on and it's going to sound good. Of course, you could put 4 mics on a guitar amp. Yeah, but again, more microphones, more problems. So, I just got my my U77, my JJ Audio U77. It was I can do cardioid or omni, but it was in cardioid, and I just started moving it around the room. And I just had headphones on. I was playing, and I would record some stuff. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool!" Like away from the drums. I was like, "Man, let me just try putting it like inside the kit." Like, because to me, it's like microphones are like ears, or like a camera lens, really. So it's like I'm sitting here at the drums, and this is what I'm hearing. This is what I want to record. So let me bring the mic closer to me. And I just kind of stumbled on that position, which we talked about, but it ended up being kind of the capsule. So the U77, for people who don't know, looks very much like a U87.
Right, large diaphragm condenser.
Large diaphragm, yeah, exactly. So it was hung upside down, so the diaphragm is at the bottom, I guess. So it's just upside down, and I kind of stuck it in right. So it was over the kick drum, like right in that space where your knee is, basically, if you're playing, the drum set. and I would just move it like up and down a little bit. And the coolest thing, man, was just like if I moved it up a little bit, you'd lose a little. The sound was wildly different
Right.
if you moved it a quarter of an inch up or down or back and forth. I mean, it was wildly different.
Just to make your life even easier, rock stars.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, man, I think it's such a great exercise. Because so many people, their only interaction or their only picture in their mind of what a drum set mic'd up like is from going to see someone at a live show, or you participating in the live show, you being the drummer, and you just see how like the sound engineer sets up the mic. And you're like, oh, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's actually serving, it's a purpose, why there is a reason why drums are mic'd like that in a live show usually. But in the studio, you don't have to. So it's really cool to just take one microphone and move it around, and you learn so much more than just sticking like 5 or 8 or 10 mics up. And then you're just like, yeah, you're learning a lot, but it's like you're learning too much at that point. Like you can become overwhelmed. So anyway, so yeah, it was just a great experiment, and just like I wanted more snare sound, so I would just I'd bring it down, and like the low end would change, drastically. I mean, it was just incredible. So I just kind of stumbled on. I finally settled on a sound I dug, and just went with it. And you're right, man. Like, I mean, for a while, for that album, for that purpose, that Soulive record, I literally just used that microphone, and then after that, I would use it in tandem with other mics on the kit, more traditionally mic'd, kind of things, snare, kick, overhead.
Right, start adding other things to that.
Exactly. But I mean, that's the kind of cool thing is like if you like really like spend the time and use one microphone, and it doesn't have to be in that position, but spend the time and take a SM57 and move it around the snare drum, and record it and listen to it. It's like, oh, well, that's, same thing with the kick drum. Like, man, you move the kick drum mic around in or out or off to the side, or, there's wildly different things. And you just kind of learn what works. And then you start putting them together. And like, but I just feel like a lot of people don't really spend the time doing that,
Well, it's great to hear you talk about it, because I'm also reminded of the value of setting up what you called a open concept studio, which is, because you can get up off the drums, go move the mic a little bit, press, be recording, play a little bit, and then you could walk, 5 steps over to the control room part and turn it up on the speakers and listen back and hear what that result is. Whereas like when we're in traditional studios, it can feel a little bit more like I got to run upstairs right now to move my mic, on the drums and run back downstairs. So it can feel a little bit more like a pain in the ass to actually do that. But the other part of that equation is reminding ourselves to give ourselves playtime in the studio. And I've been doing much more of that recently, and I'm having so much fun. I'm having more fun than I've had in a long time. And, I talked about the struggle of like letting go of some of these pieces of gear that I had had intimate love affairs with, my console and my tape machine. But what I'm realizing is that giving myself the playtime in the studio is allowing me to have kind of a more intimate relationship with myself and my music. And that's what keeps me excited about doing stuff. And it's like, when you give yourself that playtime, you get the chance to try 10 different things, 10 different ways, no pressure, see what it sounds like, experiment, turn a knob all the way up, and all of a sudden you discover, a new way to record things.
Well, exactly, man. So, I literally do that. I set aside time for myself in my calendar when either I know like, oh, or maybe for this couple of days, I don't have a band in, or I don't have anything to mix or whatever. Like, I'm just going to go to the studio with no intentions of recording a song
or checking your email while you're there.
Exactly, man. I just go in and like today, I'm just gonna mess around with different drums. I'm gonna mess around with some heads, and I'm gonna just mess around with miking them and see what they sound like. And so it's so funny, man, because we're as musicians, we're taught that you should practice. You practice your instrument, you practice your scales, you practice your rudiments, all this kind of stuff. But the thing is we don't. I feel like a lot of people don't practice recording and mixing or whatever in that same way. It's like, yeah, a lot of us like kind of practice or we're learning on the job, But the thing is like if you just spend the time and just mess around with like a couple of mics on the drum set or 4 mics on the drum set, whatever it may be, like you're going to be better prepared when it's actually go time. When you're like in the hot seat and you're recording a band or you're recording your band or whatever it is, like, oh yeah, I've already done this. I know what this sounds like. And not to say that you should just stick to those sets of rules you've created or whatever. I mean, you should always leave room for experimentation during a session, but it definitely helps. It can alleviate a lot of stress, I guess, because you wouldn't just like pick up a guitar and say, oh, I'm going to go play a gig when you can do anything, but
without practice.
Right. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, so
I don't know how you guys do it up there in Massachusetts, man, but down here in Music City, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No one practices in Nashville. Right. Right. So,
no, it's cool. Saying, and I mean, like, for me, one of the things I've done is I've just allowed me, my weekend time is me time. And sometimes I'm like, dude, why you just spent all week in the studio? It's the weekend. Why are you going down to the studio? But then I'm like, because I love doing it. And because, now I'm just going to go down and play and just go record myself and discover how things really sound, as opposed to being on the engineer side of this. It's like, for guitar stuff, it's remarkably different to sit there and try and turn knobs and adjust guitar settings for another guitar player who's playing in the studio with you. And you're like looking at them for feedback. You're like, do you like dig that? Am I going in the right direction? Kind of stuff. Yeah. Versus when you're playing the guitar yourself and you just, put a pick to a string and then immediately you're like, oh, turn this knob, turn it way up, It's just like, and I think you probably feel that when you're playing drums too. You just start turning a volume up and the gain up and the compression or whatever you're using to get the right setting because you instantly have that feedback of playing the instrument and hearing what it sounds like.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah. And it's just, it just keeps it fun.
Yeah. What about kick drum? Talk to us about front head or no front head.
So both, yes. But with generally I have no front head on resonant head. Or if I do have a resonant head on, it's just full on. There's no, I don't have the heads with the air, the vents or whatever.
Right. Like we want to hear the resonance if it's on there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, you'd be pretty surprised at how dead you could actually get a kick drum with both covered, full heads on it, like you can get it pretty dead sounding.
Well, how do you get it dead? Do you put something on the inside or do you actually just put treatments on the outside of the resonant head?
Yeah. So I actually, there was nothing in the inside actually. But on the outside, I have strips. So back in the day when I was growing up, and if you look at a lot of old school photos of say like jazz drummers or even like rock drummers, but they'd have like the felt strips that went the length of so some drums actually like they had a mechanism inside of the drum where you could tighten the tension of a felt strip. So it would be against the resonant head or sometimes the batter head as well. Mm-hmm. And so what I've done, no one really does that anymore, at least making that mechanism that I know of. But I have like these strips of cloth. Sometimes I use like felt or fleece. I don't know, it kind of depends, cotton. But so they're probably about maybe 4 to 6 inches wide, and obviously longer than the kick drum diameter. So if you're using like a 22-inch kick drum, maybe that strip would be like 26 or 28 inches long. And I just like I take the hoop off and I lay it right on the head itself, on the outside of the head, and I put the hoop back on it so it holds it in place. And that usually like it deadens it just enough so you're not getting that boom, that ringing tone,
Right.
but
Right.
it still has some life to it.
And the strip kind of goes, well, you can have the strip on the beater side or the resonant side, right?
Yeah. So a lot of times I'll have it on both sides.
And so the strip is kind of to the side of the beater. The beater's not going to hit it.
Exactly. Yep.
Gives it kind of a cool racing stripe feel.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And
So,
say again, where are you sourcing the felt strip from?
oh man, well, so my favorite strips actually are it's from this cloth. It's that I picked up in Ghana years ago. And it's like, but I mean, really, you could go to like any fabric store and find like some something that has a little bit of weight to it. But you also have to remember that you're putting it in between the head and the hoop as well. So, like I wouldn't go cutting up like a thick blanket or like a moving blanket would not work. But it's like some cotton, like something with a little bit of a weight to it. And and the thing is with that, I've tried all kinds of materials, like I said, fleece, felt, cotton, whatever, and they all affect that resonance a little differently. So again, you're gonna have to experiment a bit.
You got to have them hanging on the wall behind the drum kit.
Yeah, exactly.
The Toy Box Studio, aka Recording Studio Rockstar's headquarters, is proud to announce that it is now an official Phantom Focus mix room designed by Karl Tatz. Yay! The beautiful new control room includes Karl's acoustic lens room treatment with the PFM HD 1000 master reference monitors laser aligned for holographic stereo imaging and depth of field with accuracy from 20 hertz to over 20 kilohertz. I've never mixed on a speaker system this awesome before, and it feels great. I used to feel like I would commit to a mix, cross my fingers, and hope that it would translate to the real world. But now, when I dream up a sound that I want to create in the studio, I just turn the mix knobs and the Phantom Focus monitors tell me truthfully when I get it right. Amazing. Check out my complete interview with Karl Tatz on episode 50 of the podcast and discover the secret to massively improving your monitor setup at karltatzdesign.com/mixroom-mentor. Now, I noticed that you're also, some of the photos also have bandanas over the drum, the snare, for example. So talk a little bit about that. I'm already pulling up an Amazon and trying to order some bandanas while we're on the call.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that's one of my favorite sounds. So what I do with my bandanas, so I'll fold them in half. So, it looks, like I guess like a triangle then. And the flat side of the longest side, the folded end edge lays on the snare drum or tom or whatever. So it's basically I'm covering like a quarter of the diameter of the drum, and I have like these little clips. They're like office like paper clips or whatever, and so I'll just connect those to the rim. So it just holds it in place.
Nice.
And I got that concept from I can't remember unfortunately I can't remember the drummer's name, but he was the original drummer from Chicago, the band Chicago.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's a great sound, man. I mean, and I've done things where I've obviously like you can like put the entire bandana over the head where people kind of like go for that, the Beatles kind of sound, the later Beatles, White Album kind of vibe, and the kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like the tea towels.
The tea towels, exactly.
Is it Danny Seraphine? Is that the name of the drummer? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
Told you, rock stars. We're like big time podcast action now. I'm Googling in real time.
Yeah, man. But it's a great, I just love that sound. Again, for me, it's not, I don't want it completely dead. I still want some life to it. But it definitely, it changes the sound quite a bit,
Now, what's the trick for keeping it from falling off the snare drum?
Well, that's these little clips.
Okay,
they're like,
yeah.
And they just hold it there. You never have to worry about it falling off at all. So I'll put 2 of those on.
What about do you have any tricks for how to keep all this stuff organized and near the drum kit and not missing in the studio when you need to treat the drums?
Yeah, actually, well, so I have a couple of actually all the bandanas I'm looking right now, they're in the windowsill. So right behind the drums. And I just keep all the clips and bandanas there. I also have like a basket on the floor that has like various items, some percussion, another wooden box for drumsticks. And then I just kind of have another box that holds all those random items that for muffling and things like that. So yeah, I try to keep them like close by. So it's
cool.
Just easily accessible. Yeah.
Now there's a thing I've been stumbling with for a long time playing drums is I try to get relaxed when I play and I find myself just literally just dropping the drumsticks in the middle of grooves. So finally one day I was like, there's gotta be something you can put on your sticks. And I ended up ordering some kind of like Gorilla, drumstick wax or something.
Ooh, nice.
And it was pretty remarkable. It really helped me. But is that a thing that we should know about, or is the message like stop dropping your drumsticks, dude?
Oh, man, look, dude, I'll be on a show. I mean, it's been a while since I've played a show, but sticks fly. So
all right. Well, so that was cool to discover, and Rockstars, I encourage check that out if you want. I don't remember the exact name of it, but if you just sort of Google drumstick wax or sticky stuff, there's stuff you just wipe on the sticks, and it really does help you hold on to them.
So actually, one trick that I've discovered over the years, man, I got a batch of sticks one time, and they were the slipperiest thing. I mean, and the same sticks I always use, but for whatever reason, this batch was just super slippery. And we were playing 1 year Bowl Live at Brooklyn Bowl, and one trick that I have for that kind of situation, I'll get a pint glass of like soda. It doesn't matter what it is, any kind of soda, and I'll. So many people ask me what the hell I was doing, but I have a bunch of sticks in the pint glass soaking in the soda.
It's the old like Coke will clean off a tarnished penny overnight trick.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can clean your carburetor, you can clean the chrome on your muscle car, and then you can and you won't lose your drumsticks. So yeah. So
that kind of takes off the varnish, or it just kind of gums up the sticks a little bit.
Yeah, it's the sugar. The sugar kind of from the soda, just would gum up the sticks just enough. So
wow. And and you got to dry them off a little bit before you use them.
No, dude. I was literally just as I was playing, I was just grabbing.
Wow.
So yeah. So the funny thing, you see all these guys down in the front row, like fat, like what? They're trying to figure out like what is going on,
soda's just flying everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the truth though. Like at the end of the night, the heads, there was soda like everywhere. Because I would just grab them and start playing. So there's just like soda flying all over the place.
Just out of curiosity, man, have you ever done the thing where you've got like water or milk on the surface of your snare drum and you hit it with the stick in the music video and it goes flying up in the air? I've never done that.
I've never done that. And I'll tell you, man, that is, there's been so many times where we're playing festivals, and all of a sudden it starts raining or whatever. And I see that in videos. I get it, whatever, it's a video thing. But man, that just destroys the sound of the drums. Like as soon as it starts raining, it's just like, oh God.
Just drops on the drum head.
Oh,
just
yeah,
kills it.
Kills it.
All right. Now we did do a record early on, one of the first records I did. The producer came in and we were just looking for unusual sounds, and he poured rice all over the drum head. And then we banged that, and that was a super cool sound. And it made a big mess in the studio, so we had to clean it all up afterwards. But it didn't hurt anything.
No, exactly. Yeah, just the assistant or the intern was just like, "Oh God, this guy's in here again." Jeez, I gotta.
All right, so Shake, Crushed Velvet, and the Velveteers.
Just came out.
Yeah, it's a great sounding record. What's the story with that? How do you keep the groove so tight and the singing so inspired on a track like that? Which you may have already answered that question. And how much of that record is live tracking together versus, some kind of piece by piece?
Man, so that was all piece by piece. So that, I guess that's been the story of my life the past few years. You
fooled me, man. It just sounds like it's in the pocket.
Yeah, so okay. So one thing that helps is that's me playing bass, drums, and guitar on that track.
Okay, cool.
So I can't remember what I think with that tune. So there are a few things. Generally, most times I do not record to a click track. So like the Iguana, that wasn't to a click track. The Shake wasn't to a click track. So what I do, I remember I came in the studio and I just picked up the guitar one day, and this was one of those days where I was just like, I was just coming in here to mess around. I had no intentions of doing anything, but it turned into that. But anyway, so I was like messing around with the guitar. I was like, ooh, this feels really good, So I said, so I kind of mapped out the song. And
with the guitar.
With the guitar, yeah.
In the recording, or just mentally mapped it out?
No, yeah. Well, I mean, I was playing I just had the guitar plugged into the amp, and so I could, I knew the sound. I was inspired by the sound coming out of the amp. So anyway, so I think the first thing, once I played it through a few times on guitar, I memorized it. So then I went over to the drums and I just laid it down, like the entire tune. And I was singing it, I'm like singing in my head, and the whole form or whatever. So laid down the drums. Next thing I put down bass, and then I laid down guitar. Actually, originally I played organ on it as well. So I just did it like in half a day or whatever. But I eventually had Darby, who plays a lot of organ for my stuff. He replaced my organ. It's just it just sounded better. I just kind of sat on that tune for a long time. And then we had this woman, the singer on that, Melanie Masson. She reached out to our label, to Vintage League. And she said, I really been hearing what you guys are doing. I really like the sound and the album, the artwork and this and that. I would love to do something with you. And we were, going back and forth on, some things. I said, oh, wait a minute. I have this tune, this Crushed Velvet tune. Let me send it to her. And I sent it to her, and she was like, yep, I got it. And she just, wrote the lyrics and went into a studio over in London and just knocked it out. Now, Melanie is amazing. She was actually on, I think it was Britain's Got Talent, and like a few years ago. So it's something, it's like kind of like The Voice or whatever they have over here, and she's incredible, So anyway, so she laid down the vocals, and again, I got the horns, BT and Alex and Jared Sims. So lay down the horns, and there, it was a wrap.
Got the gang. Have you come up with a name for your collective of musicians yet?
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah,
like the Swampers down in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah, you know what, man? We don't have anything that cool. I mean, really, it's like we operate as the Vintage League Music All-Stars when we do stuff,
Nice.
like, but yeah, no, we need to come up with something
How about
better.
the bricks, man? Like pay homage to the to the mill.
But you see, man, so I used to play basketball, man. So brick isn't, that's not
That's not, those are the kind of shots I used to take.
Yeah. So homeboy, them little guys shoot bricks.
My nickname on the basketball court was fly paper because it was the only thing I could do was get in people's faces, and I did foul a lot, but nobody was calling it at the YMCA.
Yes.
Oh, awesome, man. Well, very cool. Well, so I like hearing you tell that story for a couple of reasons. One is I love hearing the encouragement to just let go of a click track and just like trust. It's like Luke, close your eyes.
Yeah, man.
Trust the force, and just go for it. And then also, know what the damn song is in your head before you play that first part. Just really, really take a minute to think through the structure. And then just perform that first thing like you mean it. And then perform the second thing like you really mean it.
Exactly.
And the third thing.
Yeah. So I just internalize the song. And so the other thing, which, I do this if I'm recording to a click track, but it helps when you don't record to a click track, and just helps in general. When I'm recording a part, I play the drums, I play all the way through. And then I pick up, and if I don't dig it, I'll just recut it. If I could have done that better or whatever. Pick up the bass, and I hit start, hit record, and I play all the way through to the end. And maybe I'll do 2 or 3 takes or whatever. But the thing is, I don't piece it together. I'm trying to get performances. And again, same thing with guitar, organ, whatever I'm playing. I perform. I just lay it down. It's so easy. I've done this. I've done it before where you I'm going to record, 8 bars of this, and then I'll just fly it down or whatever, But to me, that's how you get that. It starts to feel like something. It feels real all of a sudden,
when there's stuff playing together.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just producing myself. I'm able to take myself out of, it's kind of like a dual personality kind of thing. It's and it's very easy for me to also that sucks.
Right. Yeah, we're all real good at that, right? That's the first voice we learn.
Well, yeah, but in a I guess so. But in a very positive way, or just a productive way. It's no, you could do better. So I treat myself just like any artist that I'm producing or have in the studio. So just because or in the case where I played organ on Shake originally, it's just because I played it doesn't mean it's it could be better.
Right.
So I brought in Darby because he's a better organist than I am. So.
Nice. This episode is sponsored by Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you're ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I mastered my own record, Skadoosh, the soundtrack to this podcast, in fact, using nothing but plugins in PreSonus Studio One. These techniques would work for you no matter what DAW you're using right now. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins in Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads to practice your mixing and even include in your mix portfolio if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started now, or look for the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Well, one of the things that I find helpful for myself is when I'm trying to be in the inspired moment, which is probably a writing stage of the recording, and I might play something and then I'm getting a little deeper into the song and then I'm verse 2 and I'm shit, yeah, I immediately know I'm not playing the same thing I played in verse 1, but instead of giving up or quitting or going, shit, what was I playing? What was my part? Just go for it and just like play something new in verse 2. And like
Right.
you said, try and make it to the end of the song. Like every moment counts, because more often than not, when I go back and look at it, I'm like, oh shit, that all was really cool like that. Or the things that weren't right about it were small and easy to fix later.
Yeah. Exactly,
Yeah.
man.
As opposed to bailing on the whole damn thing.
Right. I mean, the one other thing that I let people know, and they kind of look at me funny sometimes, and I tell them I don't I don't make demos, actually.
Nice.
I literally don't. So one thing is, I'm obviously like very lucky that I have my own studio, so I can just. But when I say that, I'm not. It's not like a egotistical thing or whatever. It's just like, um, for me, I'm putting myself in the hot seat. So when I come into the studio, like anything that I record can be on a record and usually ends up on a record. And so the thing is with that, I'm it's just a different state of mind when it's not like, well, this demo, it can be, oh, I'll change it later, or I'll just, it'll morph into some whatever, whatever. It's like, no, I'm like, it's go time right now. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's a sense of, it's like a sense of urgency, I guess, or whatever,
Yeah. It's a fun way to work too. And it really does bring out the best in people. And if it's not good enough, then we just weren't ready.
Right.
We were just trying to do something we weren't ready for. We need to go back to the rehearsal room for a while.
Yeah.
So we're coming near the end here, and there's lots of things we could talk about, but let me jump to a couple of things that well, first, let me ask you if there's a project we didn't get to yet that you want to give a shout out to. Otherwise I'll jump to my next question.
Ooh, man, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm working on a lot right now, but probably most of which I can't speak on yet.
All right,
top secret.
Well, Rockstar, as a reminder, there's a ton more projects and records we didn't even talk about, like Nirvana covers with electric sitar, like a really cool project called the 7 Day Weekend. They're all in the playlist, so go check those out because they're awesome, and you're going to want to listen to this a lot. One of the things I did check out was your website, which looks like it got an upgrade as well and is looking really sharp.
Oh, thanks, man.
And then I clicked over. I was like, oh, shop. So I clicked over there and I picked up volume 1 of Taking a Break.
Oh, you did?
Which is badass, man. Rockstars, you got to go check out. These are multi-track loops of Al just laying down funky drums, which I guess you can use to build a song out of or something. So talk about that project a little bit and, what they can find there. What's the point? What's the goal? What should the Rockstars do with these?
Well, so it started out a while back, a few years ago. I was doing these, I call them Free Funk Fridays. So not every Friday, but every once in a while, I would just record a drum groove and just give it away like on a Friday. And it was just a 2-track, like you could go download it and, I say, hey, go practice with it. You can write a tune to it. You can put out whatever. And people were like really kind of digging that. So I kind of expanded on that concept. So now I've been trying and kind of unsuccessfully, but I'm trying to put one out a month. That was the goal. But I kind of got sidetracked with all this stuff. But anyway, in that, I usually go in and record maybe like 6 or 8 things. And I just offer them as their multi-track files. There's also a 2-track kind of mix in there as well. So if you just don't want to deal with if you're not like savvy in that and mixing or whatever, you can just take the 2-track and record to it or practice to it. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Doesn't matter. And so a good friend of mine made an EP that we put out on Vintage League, actually. He literally downloaded one of those volumes and created a an incredible EP. This guy Claudio Corona. Yeah, it's on the Vintage League website. It's great. So really, people have been asking me for years to make like a breakbeat album or whatever, and in the end, it was really a challenge for me because people think I'm crazy, but I really don't like playing drums just by themselves. It's like It's just so.
Just after we talked about the challenges of trying to start a song that way too.
Well, no, so yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it's like whenever I've attempted to make a breakbeat album, I'll go and I'll start recording some. Oh, these drums sound great, and I just get inspired. All of a sudden, I hear the guitar part, I hear the bass part, and
next
it becomes
thing you know,
a song.
you're playing it.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's how all of my albums, like the Crush Velvet album, like all this stuff, a lot of the A3 albums, it started out as me trying to make breakbeats, and they just turn into tunes. So I was like, okay, this time I'm going to focus on just drums. And I've done it, I guess, it's hard, but I want to place other instruments on it. But, so it's, again, people can do whatever they want with them. There's totally royalty free, whatever, man, go make your millions. If you do, cool. I mean, or make your hundreds or make your tens or whatever.
That's awesome. But, well, now there's one of these tracks is called Oteil. What's that all about?
Oh, so that's my Oteil UM101 microphone. And it's like the 70s, Japanese, it's like from the 70s. And it was like, supposedly, it was Oteil's version of like an RE20 or SM7 or something like that. Their broadcast mic. I must admit they failed miserably at that because it does not sound like anything like that. But what they did, they were very successful in creating a super cool sounding microphone. So that thing kind of lives like out in front of the drum set, probably about 3 or 4 feet in front of the drum set, and it's really cool sounding, just a vibe.
On. And then, do you want to talk about any of the other mic choices you used for doing these multi tracks?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, kick drum. I know we've talked about this before, but the famous EV666.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite kick drum microphone. Snare drum, the good old SM57. What do I have on toms? Right now I have 421s, a couple of 421s on the toms, and I have my amazing MXL 2001s as overheads.
Nice, dude. I got a pair of those.
Yeah, man. People think, it's so funny because I'm like, really? You use those? Like, oh yeah. Yeah.
That's over my drum kit right now, in fact.
Really? Yeah, man. Yeah. No, so I have those. Those actually run into Zulu. So that definitely helps them out, gives them a little boost,
All right, I gotta give me a Zulu.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of cool, man. Like on their own, they sound like, they sound like
clear.
Yeah, they sound clear. But man, you like the way I have my Zulu set for those things, they sound way more expensive than what they are. Or
nice.
Expensive. They sound way more useful, I guess.
Yeah,
They're very pleasant sounding. So.
Ceiling mic is another one that's on there.
Yeah, man. So I have this microphone just like hung from the ceiling, and it is it's like some Samson like condenser microphone, and it's just set up in Omni, and it's like my room mic, I guess. It just captures the entire room, and it's like right in the center of the room, and it's useful most times.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, it's great stuff, and I immediately picked up a guitar and started jamming to it. And I was like, "Shit, I could write a song out of this."
Oh man, cool!
Right now. So, Rockstars, definitely check that out. And let's see, we'll. I guess we can pivot forward to our last question of the day. I don't remember if we talked about your website on the last time we did this, but I did poke around. It looked like maybe you were using Wix to build it, right? Yeah.
Yes,
do you have anything you want to say about that? Just encouraging the rock stars for getting their website in order?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, man, I've gotten a lot of inspiration over the past couple years. Like every once in a while, I listen, your podcast quite a bit, man. And it's just, I think it's really good to have like an updated website, something that's I like simple, something that's easy to navigate. And something that just really tells people what you do right off the bat.
Yeah.
It gives a sense of what you do. Yeah, I mean, social media is obviously a great thing to have, but it's so funny. I still get a lot of business and inquiries through the website. So,
and you've got a bunch of album cover images on the front of it. And so that's like the first thing you see, which is great because you're making records with badass album covers, which really helps. And I guess, is each one of those something you could click and then it takes you right to the Spotify link?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. So that's actually something new I've added, and I'm still trying it. I'm fine tuning it. What I would really love is when you click on it, you could just immediately hear something.
Right.
And so I'm working on that, but in the meantime, it's cool to just have, just you can hear you, takes you somewhere. So whatever.
Nice. And I guess Wix is where you can go build a site like this.
Yeah. I mean, Wix. I mean, I also for Vintage League music, we use Squarespace. They're both really good. I mean, like back in the day, man, I actually used to build websites for people.
Oh, nice. All right. So you're pretty fearless about it.
Well, yeah. But I mean, man, they've made it so easy. I mean, like you could go on Wix now and or Squarespace, either one. They have like templates you can just start, and they look phenomenal. Like, and they're really it's just drag and drop, really. Like it takes literally, you have to have no coding skill or anything.
Yeah. Well, and so rock stars, I mean, this is kind of like a dated topic to even be talking about, ease of making a website. But for many of us still, like, in our close to our generation now, there's still this idea that you had to, hire somebody for $5,000 to build your website, and you just don't anymore. So if you want to upgrade your stuff or make it look sweet, which I need to do as well with my studio upgrade, is, it's cool to start using stuff like this, services that just make it easy.
Yeah, exactly.
So closing question, Wayback Studio Machine. I admit I didn't go listen to the last Wayback answer you gave, but you might have a new one now. I don't know. If you could go back and find yourself, however far back you want to find yourself, Al, and just say, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be ready to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day, what advice would you like to go back and give yourself if you could?
Okay. Be patient. This whole journey takes time. So be patient with yourself, be patient with others, be patient with the process, and just enjoy it. That's the funny thing is, man, it's so easy. I love listening to your podcast, and
Thanks,
you already know it, man. And we both love Matt. We draw. But
yeah.
And so the thing is, the great thing is that these days, man, there's so much access to great interviews with people and mixing with the masters, all this kind of stuff. The amount of knowledge out there that's easily accessible is amazing. But I find, because I also teach, mixing and recording and this and that, but what I find is a lot of impatience. like, or looking for that one this one plugin or this one trick that's just gonna, or this one piece of gear, whatever, that's gonna just take you over the edge, and all of a sudden your stuff's gonna be amazing. The great thing is like you can listen to all these podcasts, and there's so much great info out there, but some of the best info comes from just obviously really experienced people. And but with that experience comes from time, putting the time in, making mistakes, experimenting, and I guess that's the thing you just have to realize. And I've realized now that, I'm almost 50, I guess, at this point. It's like, man, I'm just now starting to feel like, yeah, I got this. I feel pretty good about what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes time, and just enjoy the trip. Just enjoy the trip. You're not going to be killing it right out the box.
I feel like it's also like, don't keep changing the sandbox underneath your feet. It's like,
right.
Settle into your studio and your gear for a bit, and try the same source material or gear a number of times, and you'll start to discover what really works best from it.
Right. Man, there's so much. It's so funny, man. It's unfortunate. I've had a lot of cool pieces of gear over the years that I've gotten rid of way too soon. Because I wanted something bigger or better, or and there's some things I wish I would have kept that, because I didn't know it. At the time I thought, oh, it's whatever. But it's amazing. Like I said, I don't buy gear anymore, man. Like we were speaking about Langston earlier.
Yeah,
Langston. I send stuff to Langston all the time. We talk all the time. I send him things, and every time I send him, he'll text me or call me. Al, dude, what'd you do? What'd you change? What's going on? Nothing, man. I didn't change anything. Microphones are in the same place. It's the same gear, blah, 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 But the thing is, I've been living with this gear. I now know I've been living with this gear for a long time. I haven't moved that microphone in a long time, but I just know it now. I've gotten better. Yeah. I'm not relying on the gear to help me get better. I'm making better decisions. I'm trusting. Like I was telling Kim, we were out on a walk, and sorry, man, I'm kind of going off on this.
That's good.
We were out on a walk one day, and I was telling her, it's really cool at this point. I've got my, my mix template all together, and I've messed around with other people's mix templates in the past, and one day I was like, I'm just gonna build my own. Like this is going to be mine. This is how I envision my virtual console, or whatever you want to call it, my workflow. So I built my own thing. It's mine. And the cool thing is I'm to a point now that when I mix something, it doesn't take me very long. Especially if I've recorded it. But even if I haven't, it doesn't take me very long. And the notes I get back they're like, oh, can you bring the guitar up a little bit? Or, can you bring that down a little bit? Or can you put that over there? It's not like these notes I used to get, where they're like, you get them and you're reading these emails and you feel defeated because you totally missed the mark, right. Oh my God, like, oh, this is crazy. Again, I'm not bragging or anything, but I've put in the time. And the thing is, I've gotten to a point, and I was telling her, it's like, I understand what the gear does to this point, of what my gear is doing for me, or, how to use it. But more importantly, I'm recording and mixing by instinct now. I trust my instincts. I do not second guess anything I do. People ask, oh, well, how do you know when it's done? I know when it's done when I can just hit play, and this is what I do. I hit play and I check my email, or I walk around the studio and I clean, or I just, whatever. I look out the window. And if I hear something that pulls me out of that listening experience, then I know, oh, I gotta fix that, or whatever. But if I'm just like, if all of a sudden I'm like the music almost is like in the background, like I know it's done. I feel good, And again, that comes back to instinct. That comes back to still putting in the time, but just I'm just patient, like I don't fight it. I'm not worried about what other people are going to think about this mix or this production or whatever. Like, I'm not chasing somebody else's snare drum sound. I'm not chasing somebody else's guitar sound. I don't now it's like, that sounds like a snare drum to me. That sounds like, that's how guitar sounds that's how it should sound to me. That's how this balance, that's how music sounds to me. Luckily, I'm at a point now that other people are like, yeah, it actually sounds pretty good, and I'm getting some work because of that. But it's just having that confidence. But that confidence comes with putting in the time. And,
Well, that's awesome, man. And we greatly appreciate you putting in the time for this podcast, because Rockstars, we thank you for your patience too, as we go for a long stretch. That was awesome, dude. It's such a pleasure hanging out with you. I love hearing from you. I love hearing stories, and I love staying connected with you the rest of the time. And thank you for playing on the Hide Your Mama's record. I'm excited for that to be out and for everybody to hear it.
Man, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for making that connection. And I know we've been talking about it for a while. We got sidetracked because of all this, pandemic stuff, but you and I will hang out in the same room together soon and create something.
Rockstars, at some point, and let us know in comments or emails or whatever. I think we should do some kind of getting everybody together for a clinic, recording drums, making records, doing it with you, Al, here, there, somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter to me. But if you want that, Rockstars, let us know.
Yes, they want it.
They want it. Al, let the Rockstars know where they can go find you online. How do they reach out to you? Where should they get in contact with you to make their next amazing record?
Awesome. Well, for anyone so inclined, they can find me at ironwax.com for all the old school people. And so but you can also find me on Instagram or Facebook. You just search Alan Evans, or more specifically, Play on Brother, and you will find me. And let's kick it. You can hit me up about anything, making records or just whatever, life. I'm all about it.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you again. And Rockstars, I also encourage you to go check out the loop packs, or they're not even loop packs. They're just like live drum takes.
Yeah, live drum takes, man. Yep.
Awesome stuff. And that's right on the ironwax.com/shop website. Al, great to hang with you, man. I look forward to seeing you in person again. We didn't meet when I first saw you because you were playing a same gig with me, but we didn't get a chance to meet. But I look forward to actually shaking your hand.
Same here, bro.
All right, man. We'll talk soon, dude.
Yes, indeed.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. And if you want more free content from Recording Studio Rockstars, all you have to do is go to rsrockstars.com/email. Again, that's rsrockstars.com/email to enter your name and email, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, podcast updates, and even free gear giveaways for your studio. Just look for the link in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our amazing sponsors who help make this episode possible. OWC, Spectra 1964, Sampley, Carl Tatz Design, and Isotope. Remember to use the coupon codes ROCK10 at isotope.com/rockstars for 10% off any individual plugin purchase, or start your extended 30-day free trial subscription to get access to lots of plugins. And sign up for your free free account at samplyaudio.com and get 2 projects now. Or use the coupon code RSR20 to get 20% off the first 3 months of subscription. Plus, use the coupon ROCKSTAR for 10% off any course at Recording Studio Rockstars Academy for a limited time. You'll find links to all these wonderful sponsors in our show notes. Just scroll down. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and John Richardson for additional podcast and video production. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.